Guys, this is Nick Hudson, known as Demas in the Discord. Just wanted to do a little walkthrough on some of the features on this table, just to help people understand some of the tools to help this game be easier to play in this virtual environment. Starting with the models down here, again, big thanks to Chris for doing all the hard work to getting all of these factions scanned in. It's really time consuming, and it's really awesome that he took the time to do that for the community. So these models have been attached to their stands, so they're not going to fall off. So if you pick them up and shake them around, they aren't going to move on you. They will fall over, but you see how they are all connected together, right? That helps with moving around the map and keeping everything together. Now, how do we take the models off, right? Well, as Chris said in one of his earlier videos, they have states. So if you hover over them and hit 1, 2, 3, 4, you see that you are removing and adding models to the stand that way. So that's how we take care of that problem. Second thing, sometimes you have additional command models that you want to add to your army. So for instance, here's the militia with the leader. So I've made a stand with that in there. Here is men-at-arms with a seasoned veteran and a standard bearer. Here's a men-at-arms with just the seasoned veteran. Here's men-at-arms with just the standard. So you have those options to build your units as you wish. If you don't have a leader, for example, Chris did not have that model available to him when he was scanning these in. So over here on the side, there's little proxy tokens. So just throw that next to your regiment when you're playing to remind you and your opponent that there is a leader in that regiment. We have standard bearer, and other would be a token you would use in case you wanted to replicate a seasoned veteran or a assault preceptor or something like that. Moving into the brutes, instead of having 3 models in this little setup area, I just put them all into one state. So there's 3 different household knights here, but if you just hit 1, 2, or 3, you get different visual representations of them, and that's the same way with the brute drones and with the Inferno automata, just different versions of them. Characters, they obviously have just one state because they don't have any other visual representations, or if they die, you simply take them off the board, so there's no need to add states to them. Just want to talk for a minute on these Vanguard clones. There are quite a bit of them, and that is simply because there are so many options with that regiment, because you can add, the assault preceptor to them, you can add a leader, you can add a standard bearer, and any combination of those 3 figures. So if you look through these, you will see each option for those configurations, so you'll be able to find the ones you need in order to build your regiment around that. And with that, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much the same. You'll see 4 different stands for each of the Dwegom regiments. He had both the leaders and the standard bearers for every regiment, so that kind of made things easy. You got both of them in the front. I'm sorry, pardon me. Have the leader, and then just the standard bearer. So you can have both, just the leader or just the standard bearer, and then here's your basic regiment tray. And this is all very complete, all your options right there. They're available right now anyways. So, with that being said, let's talk about building the regiments and snap points and things like that, right? So you can enable snapping on this table. Up in options, go to grid, and in here, you can show the lines if you wish. But if you snap to center, then all of your pieces are going to want to snap into these little squares. Tabletop Simulator just added a new feature where a little ghost image appears where that will kind of eventually end up, so you can see that is where that piece goes there. Well, this is great when you're building your regiments. Snap them all together, form nice little, visually pleasing units, all lined up nice. But when you are doing more finite movements on the table, and when you're trying to maybe, do an arc or something, that's not going to work for you, because it's going to want to try to snap into these little boundaries, and it makes the game unplayable. So we have to turn snapping off when we play this game. Now instead of having you have to go back and forth into the menu to turn snapping on and off and on and off back again while you're playing the game, I've made these little build trays here. So snapping is enabled in this boundary. So let's grab some Flame Berserkers here. Oh, another little point. Leave all these models back here, even though they're unlocked and you can pick them up. Copy and paste from this back here, only because if you accidentally delete a model while you're playing, you're going to have to reload the entire mod to get that model back. Or you could try rewinding time, but if you've ever played this game before, you know the rewind option sometimes has some questionable results. So my recommendation is leave all these master models back here and simply hover over it, Control C to copy, and then Control V will paste them onto the table. So you can make your regiments that way. And that way, if you accidentally delete one of these, you can always go back and grab another one from here. But anyway, you see how all of these dropped onto this build tray in nice, neat little rows? They will stay that way anywhere in this build area. And there's lots of room in here. I don't think anyone's going to be making regiments that are 8 by 8, but I think that's how big this is, roughly 8 by 8. So you have plenty of room on here. So you'll notice once you come off of this board that they no longer snap. You can move them however you wish. Also, you might have noticed the little gap that's in between the stands. I did that to make it easier when you're building your regiments. Some of these kind of have collisions because their weapons kind of overlap the edges of the stands. So with a smaller stand size, that eliminates some of those collision issues. If you just hover over that, if you select all of them, dragging that box around, and then you hit the plus sign next to the backspace key, just hit it once. You can tighten those spaces up. You could probably hit it again, but now you're really kind of, the tolerance between those objects is really small, so movement, you might have issues there. So right about there. Clean it up, and then you can pick those up and move them off to the side, and then grab your next units to build your next regiment, and then bring those over the side. Don't forget to unselect this after you've moved it, because if you hover over this object here and you hit Control Copy, you're not only copying this stand, but you're also copying this stand. So when you go and you hit paste, you'll see that he fell in here, but here's a duplicate of this. And if you accidentally paste on top of other things, you're going to have a big old pile of models, and you're going to wonder what the heck went wrong. So make sure after you highlight something and you move it, you give it another click on the table, another left click to deselect that regiment, and then you should be good to go with the rest of these. So like I said, you finish building up your armies, or your regiments, and then we kind of get into movement on the table, right? So you might have been noticing this line that's been appearing while I move this around. This is a new feature in Tabletop Simulator. It's kind of an auto measurement tool, and I've enabled it on all the models. So basically how it works is it measures from the point that you pick it up to the point that you set it down. All right, so let's say we're going to march these guys on. Flame Berserkers have a march of 5, right? So that's pretty close to the edge there. We can get a little closer for the sticklers. So there we go. We're going to march our Flame Berserkers on. Do a double march. Move on 10 inches. So we're going to pick these guys up. Now the key here is to get your lines straight, right? So obviously this is not a proper movement of 10 inches here, right? Because we're marching in diagonally. Our regiments march forward, right? So it's going to be on you a little bit to kind of make sure that that line is kind of straight to the board game, or to the mat, or to your regiment, right? So kind of a little honesty there. Get that lined up nice and straight, and then move it on. Straighten it up as you go. So here we are. You can see 10.5, 10.3, 10.2, so there we are. Now we've marched on 10 inches. It's a lot quicker than grabbing the ruler and measuring it out and all that kind of good stuff. You can still do that. The rulers are still on the table for people that enjoy doing that. And I have no qualms with that. But for the people that want a quicker, faster tool, and you just want to march these guys 5 inches forward, and even them out. Whoop, went too far. Let's see, that measurement is happening right there for you. There you go. There's a 5-inch movement with no rulers and no fuss and all that kind of stuff. Now when it comes to doing your arcs and your turns and stuff like that, that tool is not going to be able to help you. So you're going to have to go back to your rulers or your line tool, which is over here. You can measure, you know, the front corner of the stand or the back corner of the stand, however you like to do it, measuring that arc motion. I've also added, as you might have seen in one of Chris's battle reports, he uses this arc of wheeling. I happened to find an image of that and add that to the game. You are going to have to check this thing for scale. I can't say it's 100% accurate. It's there. You can experiment with it, and if you feel it needs to be resized, obviously hit your plus and minus keys to make that the appropriate size. But I did the best I could as far as, you know, measuring the measurements that are on this to make it accurate. So if you know how to use that tool and you'd like to, that option is there for you. Other than that, as far as the arcing goes, it rotates on the stand that you pick it up from, okay? So here's what you kind of got to realize. When you turn, it turns from the side that you grab on. And it's going to measure it from the center of the stand. There's nothing you can do about that. That's just how it's going to happen. So it's not going to measure your arc from the very corner, because if you look, as I pick this up and turn, technically that corner should move from the position that it's in, but you see the corner does shift. So technically, you're not doing a true arc. You're arcing from the center of the stand rather from the corner of the stand. But there's nothing you can do about that. So you and your opponent are just going to have to agree that it's a limitation of the system, and you can't, you're going to have to be fudged by a small measurement to make it accurate. But regardless, when you are arcing, if you hold it on the right side, it will pivot around that right stand. If you pick it up on the left side, it will pivot around that left stand. And if you're doing a reform, you pick it up from the center stand, and you can reform your regiment around that center stand per the rules. So we went over kind of marching on the auto measure tool, how to turn, how to arc. The other thing I will show you for measurements and stuff like that, especially if you have your marksman clones, you kind of want to see what your range is for firing at your opponent. So I have these little things that I found. Credit to the original creator is in the description of the game, of the mod. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. I might have put it in my notes. Also, you can go up to the notes here and read all about all the different options here. Bubble markers. They were made by Orange Cream. That's who designed these, and I think they're pretty neat. So let's take our marksman clones, and we know that they have a range of 28 inches, right? Maximum range of 28 inches. Of course, you're only going to get half your shots at that range, but there's a 28-inch bubble marker, and the way this works is when you set it down, it puts out a big circular range of 28 inches from the center point of this marker. If you pick it up and set it down again, it will turn that off. So what you can do is turn that on, and you can go from each of your stands, to zoom out a little bit so you can see, but from each of your stands you can see if you are in range, right? So if you had another unit, just make another one here real quick, and they are over here, you can see that this stand could only hit 2 of their stands. This would only hit the corner of that stand there, and then these, this stand here would not be able to hit any of their stands at all. So when calculating shots, this will help you do that. You can also use it for movement if you want to. You could take, I don't know, there's your 5-inch bubble marker. Remember, it measures from the center of that button, so you want to put it about halfway there, turn it on, and then you could take your guys and march them forward to right about there. So see, they are accurate. See, I've moved 5 inches forward on the ruler, and we're about at the boundary of that circle, so everything measures pretty accurately. But that's the bubble markers. They're good mostly, I find, for range finding. So if you are trying to do a volley or something like that, it gives you all your visual area that you can attack in. As far as the rest of these markers go, most of these were made by Chris, so I included them. Shield, you got your broken markers, you got fury and decay markers. I added this little health tracker, so you can put that behind your brutes or behind your monster figures to kind of mark, either however you like to do it. If you like to mark how much damage is on that or how much health they have left, just make sure that your opponent is clear on how you're marking them. There is a calculator here if you need it for calculating the points when building armies, but your calculator on your cell phone is probably much easier to use, or the army builder on the website is going to be your go-to. Wonder why those won't go back in the bags. It's okay. We can just delete them if we don't want them. Your rule book is here. You have Chris's dice rollers and his scoreboard. He went over those in his video, so you can refer to that for that information. He did talk a little bit about the terrain in the video he made. There's not much more I have to say about that. You have these trees, forest, rocks, hills. These are all containers, so you just drag out of them and you get the little objects to use as terrain. You can also right-click and search. That'll show you what's in there. Won't tell you exactly what the size is going to look like, so you might have to drag it out to kind of get the idea. But then remember, you can scale everything. So if that rock is not big enough, and you can hit the plus button to make it bigger, or if it's too big, you can hit the minus button to make it smaller. And then I recommend locking your terrain in, hover over the object, and then hit L. That'll make sure that it's non-interactable. So if you have a regiment nearby that you want to highlight and move, this way it won't select the rock. Let's see, just pick that up. If this object is now unlocked, then I go to pick up my regiment and I accidentally take the rock with me. So lock your terrain down with L, and that'll keep that accident from happening. There's some cover, some buildings that you can use. Regiments will fit inside of these. Again, remember to lock these down, so if you're gonna place those on your map to use, hit L, and then you can place them inside. And then when you go to grab them again, you're not going to pick the building up when you move them out. Just some options, and of course, feel free to add any of your own stuff. If you find an object in another game that you like, go up here to objects. Here's what I recommend. I recommend getting a bag. You go into components and it's custom. Oh no, it's tools. Select a bag. Oops. That's a new feature too. You can spawn as many of them as you want. I'm still getting used to that. Take the objects that you like, that you want to save, throw them in a bag, and then name this bag something by right-clicking and putting the name in here. And then once you have that named in there, then go to Save Object. And then you can choose what folder you have that you want to save it to. And it'll save into your saved object. So if you want to go back to that object, objects, saved objects, and then you can see all the different objects that you have in there. There's some stuff I got from other games I've built. But that's how you get them in the game, and then you can save them in your own version of this mod and then play that mod with your friends, make any customizations if you want. And that is about it. If you guys have questions, you can put them down in the comments, or you can message me over on Discord, and I'd be happy to try to answer those for you. I don't think there's anything that I forgot about that. I don't think I mentioned about the stats being baked in, but that's real simple. We can cover that real quick. If you hover over and you leave your cursor on top of the models, you got the stats there for each one. You know, the minimum stands, how many points for that minimum, additional stand cost, what class it is, and then obviously their attack, movement, defense, stats, and then special rules, and then additional models that you can add to them, the leader, standard bearer, things like that. So if you're in the middle of playing and you forget exactly how many dice you need to attack with, there you go. Just hover over the model, and then in the same way, if you are trying to figure out how many wounds the other opponent has, and you can hover over their models and see that information as well. So just putting all that information there so there's less going back and forth to this while you're playing, and more getting on the table and moving the models around and having fun. So thanks for watching. Like I said, you guys have questions, hit me up, and I will see you around. Have a good one.